The massive stone walls of the ancient ruins rose before them, covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow with a faint blue light. Lead researcher Gray stood in silence, his three-fingered hand touching the cold surface of what appeared to be a warning sign. Around him, the research team from the Stellar Confederation moved carefully through the dusty chambers, their environmental suits gleaming under the harsh lights they had set up. "Another warning about these humans," Gray said, his voice tight with concern as he addressed Council Member Reed, who had just entered the chamber. "This makes it the 100th one we found in these ruins. The ancient ones were very clear about the danger." Reed walked forward, his tall frame towering over Gray. The council member's protective suit was marked with the golden stripes of his rank, setting him apart from the simple white suits of the research team. He waved his hand dismissively. "Primitive civilizations often left warnings about their enemies. It means nothing." But Gray couldn't shake off his unease. The warnings were everywhere in these moon-sized ruins, carved into every important surface, written in multiple languages, some of which still defied translation. The message was always the same: beware the humans. They appear primitive, but possess dangerous potential. Do not underestimate them. The research team had discovered these ruins 3 standard months ago, orbiting a dying star at the edge of Confederation space. The structures were massive, clearly built by a civilization far more advanced than anything the Confederation had encountered before. But there was no sign of what had happened to them, only these endless warnings about humans. "Council member," Gray tried again, "the dating system shows these ruins are over 50,000 years old. Yet they specifically mention humans. Don't you find that strange? A species mentioned by name, so long ago." Reed turned to face the researcher, his expression visible through the clear faceplate of his suit. "What I find strange, lead researcher, is your continued fascination with these primitive scrawlings. We've already located the species they're warning about. These humans are confined to a single solar system, barely able to reach their own moon. They fight among themselves over primitive resources and rely on chemical rockets for space travel." A young researcher named Pine rushed into the chamber, holding a datapad. "Sir, we've found something else. A central chamber. It seems to be some kind of record room." Reed immediately headed in the direction Pine indicated, with Gray following close behind. The chamber they entered was massive, with walls covered in what appeared to be data storage crystals. In the center stood a holographic projector, still functional after all these millennia. Pine activated it, and a message began to play. The hologram showed beings of various species, all leaving the same warning. They adapt. They survive. They overcome. Do not attempt to control them. Do not attempt to guide them. Do not underestimate them. We made this mistake. Learn from our failure. Reed laughed, the sound echoing through the chamber. Look at these primitive fears. They speak of humans like they're some kind of cosmic horror. We've observed Earth for years now. They're barely into their digital age. Half their planet doesn't even have reliable power systems. Gray watched as Reed walked around the hologram, studying it with amusement rather than concern. Sir, with respect, maybe we should study these warnings more carefully before proceeding with the expansion plans. The Confederation's expansion plans are not up for debate, lead researcher, Reed said coldly. These ruins, while technologically interesting, are clearly the remains of a paranoid civilization. Their warnings about humans are nothing more than primitive superstitions. We will proceed as planned. As they left the chamber, Gray took one last look at the hologram. The final warning was still playing. They appear weak until they are strong. They appear divided until they unite. They appear primitive until they strike. Beware the humans. But like all the other warnings in these ancient ruins, these words too would go unheeded. The Stellar Confederation had made its decision. They would expand into human space, and they would guide this primitive species as they saw fit. Little did they know, they were about to learn exactly why those warnings had been left behind. The Confederation's first contact fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. 5 massive ships, each bigger than Earth's largest cities, positioned themselves in a formation that was meant to impress. Their sleek hulls gleamed under the distant sunlight, a display of technological superiority that had worked on countless other species before. Captain Turner of the Earth Defense Force watched the alien ships through the viewport of humanity's largest space station. His weathered face remained calm, but his eyes studied every detail of the vessels. Behind him, Ambassador Stone adjusted his simple blue uniform, preparing for humanity's first official contact with alien life. "They're trying to intimidate us," Turner said quietly. Stone nodded. "Yes, but we'll play along. That's what we decided." The communication screen lit up, showing Council Member Reed's face. His alien features might have seemed strange to humans a few decades ago, but Earth's leaders had been watching the Confederation for years through their hidden quantum observation posts. "Greetings, primitive." "Ah, greetings, people of Earth," Reed corrected himself, though his condescending tone remained. "We are the Stellar Confederation, and we have come to welcome you into the galactic community." Stone stepped forward, his face showing carefully crafted wonder and excitement. "This is an incredible moment for humanity. We are honored by your presence." He didn't mention that Earth had detected the Confederation's scout ships years ago. Reed's expression showed satisfaction at what he interpreted as appropriate awe from a primitive species. "We will guide your development, help you overcome your current limitations. First, we must establish proper protocols and development zones." Through the next 6 hours, Stone played the role of an overwhelmed but grateful representative of a primitive species. He accepted the Confederation's offers of help with appropriate humility, while Turner quietly recorded every detail of their ship's energy signatures. In a private chamber after the meeting, Stone met with Turner and their small team. "They bought it completely," he said, loosening his collar. "They think we're exactly what they expected to find." Turner brought up a holographic display showing scans of the Confederation ships. "Their technology is advanced, but not as advanced as we feared. Nothing we haven't seen before through our quantum observers." "Did you notice how they kept emphasizing their faster-than-light travel?" Stone asked, pouring himself a drink. "They clearly think we're decades away from achieving it." "If they knew about the Henderson Drive," Turner began. "They don't," Stone cut in. "And they won't. Remember the plan. We play weak, we play primitive, we learn everything we can about them." The team spent hours reviewing the meeting. The Confederation had revealed more than they realized. Their technology level, their social structure, their assumptions about humanity. Every condescending offer of help, every diplomatic slip showing their true feelings, all of it was valuable information. Meanwhile, in his flagship, Reed was preparing his report to the High Council. "The humans are exactly as our surveys indicated," he dictated. "Primitive, divided, but eager to learn. They're properly impressed by our technology, as they should be. Their representative, Stone, shows appropriate deference. I recommend we proceed with establishing development zones and beginning their technological guidance." Gray, who had been invited to observe the first contact, stood quietly in the corner. "Sir," he said carefully, "don't you think they accepted everything a bit too easily? The warnings in the ruins." Reed turned sharply. "Those warnings are nothing but ancient superstitions. Look at them. They're still using chemical rockets and radio waves. Their most advanced AI would be considered primitive by our standards. They're children, Gray, nothing more." As Reed continued his report, Earth's quantum communication network was buzzing with activity. Hidden bases throughout the solar system were running analysis on every piece of data gathered from the Confederation ships. In underground facilities, human scientists were already identifying potential weaknesses in their visitors' technology. The game had begun, and only one side knew they were playing it. 3 months after first contact, Commander Wilson stood at the window of her lunar base office, watching the Confederation's construction ships building their new development zone installations. Her face showed nothing, but her hands were tight behind her back as she observed their work. They're placing monitoring stations all around Earth's orbit, she said to the holographic image of Ambassador Stone floating above her desk. Just as we expected. Good, Stone replied, his image flickering slightly. Let them think they're in control. How's Project Mirror coming along? Wilson walked to her desk and pulled up a secure display. Every piece of technology they've shown us, every system they've installed. We've copied it all. The reverse engineering team is working faster than expected. Turns out their tech isn't as complex as they think it is. Outside, another Confederation ship moved into position, its crews setting up what they called a guidance beacon, supposedly to help Earth's primitive ships navigate space better. What they didn't know was that humans had already figured out how to tap into their navigation network. In his office on Earth, Professor Hall led a team of scientists examining a piece of Confederation technology, a simple food replicator they had been generously given. The team had not only figured out how it worked, but had already improved its efficiency by 30%. They keep everything so basic, Hall muttered, making notes. It's like they stopped innovating centuries ago. The door opened, and Council Member Reed walked in, flanked by his assistants. The human scientists quickly covered their work, showing only the original replicator they were supposed to be learning about. Ah, Professor Hall, Reed said, his voice dripping with condescension. How are you finding our technology? Not too difficult to understand, I hope. Hall put on his best confused expression. Oh, it's quite challenging, sir. We're still trying to understand the basic principles. He pointed to a diagram they kept around for just such visits, a deliberately simplified version of how they pretended to think the replicator worked. Reed nodded approvingly. Don't worry, you'll understand it eventually. We're here to guide you, step by step. He walked around the lab, not noticing the hidden panels or the carefully concealed advanced equipment. We've set up similar learning centers all around your planet. In a few decades, you might even be ready for space-full technology. After Reed left, Hall pressed a button under his desk. The lab's true nature was revealed as panels slid open, showing advanced testing equipment and improved versions of various Confederation devices. A few decades. He chuckled. We cracked their space-full tech 2 weeks ago. Meanwhile, in a secret facility deep under the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Blake reviewed the latest reports. Every Confederation gift had been analyzed, every piece of their technology studied and improved upon. Their attempts to restrict human development had only provided more opportunities to learn about their systems. They think they're watching us, Blake said to her staff, but we're the ones gathering real intelligence. She brought up a display showing the locations of all Confederation monitoring stations. Every scanner they put up gives us another window into their networks. Every primitive tech they give us shows us exactly how their systems work. A young lieutenant spoke up. Ma'am, what if they discover what we're doing? Blake smiled grimly. That's why we maintain the act. As far as they know, we're still struggling with basic spaceflight and simple AI. Let them think their development zones are keeping us contained. In orbit, Commander Wilson watched another Confederation ship arrive. They were building their cage around Earth, thinking they were restricting humanity's growth. But humans had already spread far beyond their solar system through secret quantum tunnels, establishing hidden bases and research stations. The Confederation's attempt at control was becoming humanity's greatest advantage. Every restriction they placed on Earth provided another opportunity to study their weaknesses. Every piece of simple technology they shared revealed more about their systems. The trap was perfect, except the ones setting it didn't realize they were the ones being trapped. Deep within an asteroid base hidden in the Kuiper Belt, Admiral Blake stood before a massive holographic display showing hundreds of secret human installations throughout and beyond the solar system. Each glowing dot represented a triumph of human ingenuity, completely unknown to their alien mentors. Show me the weekly progress report, she commanded. The display shifted, revealing lists of achievements that would have shocked the Confederation. A scientist named Cooper approached with a tablet. Admiral, the quantum shield tests were successful. We've improved on their design by 300%. Their sensors can't detect them at all. Blake nodded, studying the data. And the AI integration. Better than we hoped, Cooper replied, bringing up another display. While they think we're still working on basic machine learning, our AI systems have already mapped their entire communication network. They have no idea we can read everything they send. In the observation room above them, Professor Hall was teaching a class of young engineers. Through the window, they could see a massive shipyard where humans were building vessels that incorporated both Confederation technology and human innovations. Remember, Hall said to his students, we don't just copy their tech, we improve it. They've grown comfortable, stopped pushing boundaries. We haven't. One of the students raised her hand. Sir, why don't they notice our power usage? All this must take enormous energy. Hall smiled. Because 6 months ago, we cracked their sensor systems. Everything they see is what we want them to see. When they look at Earth's power grid, they see exactly what they expect. A primitive system struggling to meet basic needs. Meanwhile, in a Confederation monitoring station orbiting Mars, lead researcher Gray was growing increasingly uneasy. He stood before Council Member Reed, trying once again to voice his concerns. The humans are learning too fast, Gray said, showing Reed a datapad. Even accounting for our guidance, their progress is unprecedented. Reed barely glanced at the pad. Of course they're learning quickly. We're excellent teachers. His pride prevented him from seeing the warning signs. Look at their latest space flight. Still using ion engines, exactly as expected for their development level. What Reed didn't know was that the primitive ion engine flight he'd observed was actually a carefully staged show. The real human ships, hidden behind quantum shields, were already faster and more efficient than anything the Confederation had. Back on Earth, Ambassador Stone attended another condescending meeting with Confederation officials. They showed him simple technology, explaining it slowly as if to a child. Stone played his role perfectly, asking basic questions and showing appropriate amazement at things humans had mastered months ago. This is a basic matter replicator, a Confederation teacher explained, demonstrating a device that could create simple objects. Perhaps in a few years, your people will understand how it works. Stone nodded eagerly while sending a coded message through his neural implant. Technology the Confederation thought was centuries beyond human capability. The message went to Professor Hall. They're still using the Mark IV replicator design. Ours is 3 generations ahead now. In hidden facilities across the solar system, humans continued their work. They built ships that combined the best of human innovation with reversed-engineered Confederation technology. They developed AI systems that could outthink anything the aliens had. They created weapons they hoped they'd never have to use, but kept ready just in case. Admiral Blake stood in her command center, watching the latest test of a human improved faster than light drive. They think they're guiding our development, she said to her staff. But we're not following their path. We're blazing our own. A junior officer approached with new data. Admiral, we've just cracked their highest level encryption. We now have access to everything. Their military codes, their strategic plans, everything. Blake studied the information, her expression grim. Keep monitoring. The way they're talking, they're going to try to establish permanent control soon. We need to be ready. The hidden progress continued, invisible to the aliens who thought they were in control. Humanity had turned the Confederation's attempt to restrict them into the perfect cover for their own advancement. The only question was, how long could they keep up the act? The tension in the Mars conference room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Ambassador Stone sat at one end of the table, his face carefully neutral as Reed delivered what the Confederation thought was an ultimatum. This is not a request, Reed said, standing tall and proud. The Confederation will establish a permanent oversight base on Mars. Your primitive mining operations there will be placed under our direct control. Stone glanced at the digital pad in front of him, pretending to study the Confederation's demands. In reality, he was receiving real-time updates from Admiral Blake through his hidden neural implant. Human sensors had detected Confederation warships moving into position around the solar system. "We must respectfully decline," Stone said calmly. "Mars is under Earth's jurisdiction." Reed's expression darkened. "Perhaps I wasn't clear. This isn't a negotiation. We've guided your species for a year now. Your resistance to proper oversight is concerning." Through his neural link, Stone received another update. "Fleet in position. Quantum shields ready, waiting for your signal." He kept his face carefully blank, maintaining the appearance of a worried diplomat from a primitive species. "The Earth Defense Council's decision is final," Stone said, standing up. "We appreciate your help, but Mars remains under human control." Reed slammed his hand on the table. "You force us to demonstrate why the Confederation's guidance cannot be refused." He pressed a button on his wrist device. "Begin the demonstration." Above Earth's moon, 3 Confederation warships opened fire on a small human mining outpost. Their energy weapons flashed brilliantly against the black of space. They expected to see the primitive human structure dissolve under their attack. Nothing happened. In her command center, Admiral Blake watched through multiple holographic displays as the Confederation weapons splashed harmlessly against human quantum shields. "They took the bait," she said quietly. "Signal all hidden bases. Operation Revelation is now active." Back in the Mars conference room, Reed was getting increasingly agitated reports. "Impossible," he shouted into his communicator. "How are those structures still standing?" Stone stood up, his demeanor changing completely. Gone was the humble diplomat, replaced by someone who radiated quiet confidence. "Council Member Reed," he said, his voice firm. "I believe it's time for some honesty between our species." Reed spun around, but before he could speak, the entire room transformed. The simple conference room facade melted away, revealing a high-tech command center that had been hidden behind holographic screens. Dozens of human operators sat at advanced stations, monitoring the situation throughout the solar system. What is this?" Reed stammered, looking around in shock. "This is what you refused to see," Stone said, walking to a central display. "While you were busy guiding us, we were learning everything about you. Every piece of technology you gave us, we improved. Every restriction you placed on us, we turned into an opportunity." On the screens around them, reports were coming in from throughout the solar system. Hidden human ships were decloaking everywhere, revealing vessels far more advanced than their Confederation counterparts. The quantum shields protecting human installations were holding perfectly against all attacks. "Stop this at once," Reed demanded, trying to contact his fleet. His communications weren't working. "Your communications are blocked," Stone explained calmly. "In fact, we've been controlling what you could see and hear for months now. Those primitive mining operations you've been monitoring. Holograms. Those simple ion engines you've been tracking. A show for your benefit." Admiral Blake's voice came through the room's speakers. "All Confederation ships have been contained. No casualties on either side. Quantum field generators are holding." Reed sank into a chair, his face ashen. "The ancient warnings," he whispered. "They were right all along." Stone nodded grimly. "We gave you every chance to treat us as equals. Instead, you chose to see what you wanted to see. Now you face the consequences of underestimating humanity." Around the solar system, humanity's true power was revealing itself. The mask of primitive development was being dropped, showing a civilization that had taken the Confederation's basic technology and transformed it into something far more advanced. The betrayal was complete, but it wasn't humanity who had done the betraying. The Confederation had betrayed themselves by refusing to heed the ancient warnings. Admiral Blake stood on the bridge of Earth's flagship, the Revelation, as it emerged from quantum stealth. The massive ship dwarfed the largest Confederation vessel, its sleek hull gleaming with power. Around it, hundreds of other human ships appeared, dropping their cloaking fields in a carefully choreographed display of force. "All ships report ready," her tactical officer announced. "Quantum shields at full power. Confederation vessels are completely surrounded." Through the main view screen, Blake watched the Confederation fleet's desperate attempts to breach human defenses. Their weapons, which they had thought so superior, couldn't even scratch the quantum shields humanity had developed. "Open a channel to all Confederation ships," Blake ordered. When the channel was ready, she spoke clearly and firmly. "This is Admiral Blake of the Earth Defense Force. Your weapons are useless against our shields. Stand down immediately." In the Mars Command Center, Stone watched as Reed received frantic communications from his fleet. The Confederation leader's face had lost all its previous arrogance, replaced by shock and fear. "How?" Reed whispered, watching displays showing human ships using technology far beyond what the Confederation possessed. "You were supposed to be primitive. We were monitoring everything." "No," Stone corrected him. "You were monitoring what we wanted you to monitor. Every primitive facility you saw was a hologram. Every simple ship you tracked was a decoy. We used your own arrogance against you." On a nearby screen, they watched as a small human ship easily disabled a Confederation cruiser using technology that shouldn't have existed for centuries in their development timeline. The human vessel's quantum-enhanced weapons shut down the cruiser's systems without causing any casualties. Professor Hall's voice came through the command center speakers. "All Confederation systems have been successfully accessed. We control their entire network now. Their weapons are offline. Their communications are under our control." Reed slumped in his chair. "This is impossible. Your species was confined to one solar system, using chemical rockets and basic computers. That's where you made your mistake," Stone explained, bringing up a galactic map. Across it, hundreds of human outposts lit up far beyond the solar system. "We were never confined. While you watched our decoy ships, our real fleet was expanding through quantum tunnels. Every piece of technology you gave us, we improved. Every system you showed us, we enhanced." In space, the human fleet continued its methodical neutralization of Confederation forces. Not a single shot was fired with lethal intent. Instead, human ships used their advanced technology to simply shut down their opponents, displaying a level of control that terrified the Confederation crews even more than destruction would have. "Admiral," Blake's tactical officer reported, "all Confederation ships have been neutralized. No casualties on either side." Blake nodded with satisfaction. "Begin Phase 2. Show them exactly what they've been missing." Around every Confederation ship, holographic displays activated, showing them the true extent of human advancement. They saw massive shipyards hidden in quantum space, research facilities that had taken their technology and improved it beyond recognition, and defense systems that made their weapons look primitive in comparison. "We could have shared this with you," Stone told Reed, gesturing at the displays. "We wanted to be equals. Instead, you chose to treat us like children." Through his neural link, Stone received a message from Blake. "The High Council is calling. They're requesting immediate negotiations." Reed watched in stunned silence as more human ships appeared throughout the solar system. Each one demonstrated capabilities that shouldn't have been possible for centuries according to the Confederation's development scales. "The ancient warnings," Reed muttered, finally understanding. They weren't warning about human aggression. They were warning about human potential. Stone looked at the defeated Confederation leader with a mixture of pity and determination. "You had a chance to be our teachers, our friends, our allies. Instead, you chose to be our jailers. Now you understand why those ancient beings left those warnings. Humanity had been unleashed, not with violence or destruction, but with a display of technological superiority that shattered every preconception the Confederation had held. The students had far surpassed their would-be teachers, and the galaxy would never be the same." 2 weeks after humanity's revelation of their true power, the Grand Chamber of the Confederation High Council looked very different from before. Where once the human representatives had stood in the lower section reserved for developing species, now Ambassador Stone sat as an equal at the main table. Admiral Blake and Professor Hall flanked him, their presence a reminder of humanity's hidden strength. The trial of Council Member Reed was reaching its conclusion. He stood in the center of the chamber, his once proud stance now humbled by the weight of his mistakes. "The evidence is clear," the head council member announced, her voice echoing through the chamber. "You ignored direct warnings from an ancient civilization. You implemented restrictive policies against a species that should have been welcomed as equals. Your actions brought us to the brink of conflict." Reed looked around the chamber, seeing the faces of those he had once commanded. "I only did what we have always done. We guide developing species. We help them grow." "No," Stone spoke up, his voice firm but not unkind. "You didn't guide us. You tried to cage us. There's a difference." Professor Hall activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed side-by-side comparisons of Confederation technology and the improved versions humanity had developed. "In 1 year," Hall explained, "we took every piece of technology you shared and improved it. Your quantum shields, we made them 300% more efficient. You're faster than light drives. We found a way to make them use half the energy. We didn't need guidance, we needed partnership." Admiral Blake stood next, bringing up another display showing the vast network of human installations and innovations that had remained hidden. "We could have shared all of this," she said. "Instead, your actions forced us to hide our progress and prepare for conflict." The head council member nodded gravely. The ancient warnings were clear. They adapt. They survive. They overcome. Yet you dismissed these warnings as primitive superstition. In the public gallery, lead researcher Gray watched the proceedings with a mixture of vindication and sadness. He had tried to warn them, had seen the signs, but pride and arrogance had blinded the leadership. "The council has reached its decision," the head council member announced. "Reed will be removed from his position, and all policies of technological restriction against humanity will be immediately lifted." She turned to face Stone. "We offer our formal apology to Earth and its people." Stone stood, his expression serious. "We accept your apology, but more importantly, we offer something in return: partnership. Despite everything that has happened, we believe we can work together to create something greater than either of our civilizations could achieve alone." He gestured, and human technicians began distributing data devices to each council member. "These contain our improvements to your technology, freely shared. Consider it the first step toward real cooperation between our peoples." The council members activated the devices, their eyes widening as they saw the advances humanity had made. What they had thought would take centuries, humans had achieved in months. "There will be changes," Admiral Blake added firmly. "No more development zones. No more treating species as primitive just because they're different. The galaxy needs equals, not masters and students." The head council member stood, looking around the chamber. "Let this be a lesson to us all. The warnings we found were not just about humanity's potential for advancement. They were about our own potential for arrogance." As the session ended, Stone, Blake, and Hall stood together, watching the council members examine the shared human technology with amazement. "Do you think they've really learned?" Hall asked quietly. Stone smiled slightly. "They're beginning to. And next time they find ancient warnings about a species, I suspect they'll pay more attention." Outside the chamber, ships from both civilizations orbited peacefully. Human vessels, no longer hiding their true capabilities, flew alongside Confederation ships. The stars looked down on the beginning of a new era, one where humanity had earned not just its freedom, but its rightful place among the stars. The ancient warnings had served their purpose, not just to warn about humanity's potential, but to teach a lesson about respect, equality, and the danger of underestimating those who seemed less advanced. It was a lesson the Confederation would never forget.